Welcome to Kidmissing TV. I am your host, Angelina Wilson. There is no poster in this case because this case is from 1884 and 1885. This is one of the earliest serial killers in the United States. Austin, Texas, servant girl annihilator, or the midnight assassin. He would sneak into bedrooms and murder women and men sometimes. But his focus was women and teenage girls. Some people think he might have later become Jack the Ripper in Whitechapel, London, United Kingdom. There were so many. I want to read you the victims, but before I do, and 6 of the murdered women had a sharp object inserted into their ear. I would say thrust would be more apropos there. He was only called the servant girl annihilator by O. Henry, whose real name was William Sidney Porter. The December 26, 1885 issue of the New York Times said, quote, that the murders were committed by some cunning madman who is insane on the subject of killing women, end quote. Two of the women's husbands were arrested. One was acquitted, one was convicted and then overturned because he didn't do it. Evidently, the elected officials didn't necessarily believe it was one person or a gang. The African-American community and some practitioners of voodoo believed that the killer was a white man who had magic powers that enabled him to become invisible, as no dogs outside or in fenced yards adjacent to locations where murders occurred were heard to bark or raise any alarm. The series of murders stopped when additional police were hired and a neighborhood vigilance group was formed, which would today be called a neighborhood watch. They patrolled the streets. Now, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the victims. Molly Smith was 25 years old. She was murdered on the night of 30 December 1884. Walter Spencer was seriously wounded. Clara Strand and Christine Martinson, 2 Swedish servant girls, were seriously wounded on the night of the 19th of March 1885. Eliza Shelley was murdered the night of 6 May 1885. Irene Cross was murdered by a man with a knife on the night of the 22nd of May 1885. Clara Dick was seriously wounded in August of 1885. I guess they don't have a date on that one. Mary Ramey 11 was murdered the night of 30 August 1885, and her mother, Rebecca Ramey, was seriously wounded. Gracie Vance and her boyfriend, Orange Washington, were murdered on the night of 28 September 1885. Susan Hancock and Eula Phillips were both murdered on the night of Christmas Eve, the 24th of December 1885. There was supposedly an eyewitness to this case, but the last 2, but they were contradicting themselves, so. He was described in different ways. A white or dark complected man or a yellow man wearing lamp black, like blackface, to conceal his skin color, or a man wearing a Mother Hubbard style dress, or a man wearing a slouch hat, or a man wearing a hat and a white rag that covered the lower part of his face. Again, there were reports they worked with a partner or with a gang. In 2014, the PBS TV show History Detectives, which I love, by the way, aired an episode on the killings using a combination of historical research and modern techniques, including psychological and geographic profiling. They identified a suspect, Nathan Elgin, a 19-year-old African-American cook. He worked in close proximity to the crime scenes and was missing his little toe, which was similar to a footprint believed to have been left by the killer. In February of 1886, shortly after the last murder, Elgin was shot and killed by police while he was attempting to assault a girl with a knife. And there were several, like I said, the writer O. Henry coined the phrase servant girl annihilator. Town is fearfully dull, he wrote. In 2000, Stephen Saylor published a novel, A Twist at the End, which closely reconstructed the murder. It was a fictional, that's not a word, fictional or fictitious telling of the story. The podcast Tanis, in its 6th episode, a mystery suspense docudrama, is titled The Servant Girl Annihilator, and it suggests a connection between the killings and the mysteries central to the podcast's ongoing story. In 2022, the Drag Audio Production House published a 4-part podcast, Devilish Deeds, a non-fiction series about the murders. It explored the victims' deaths and the theories surrounding the killer or killers. Wow. Obviously, like I said, no poster, no phone number. This was 140 years ago. Coming up. No, well, this year. 2024. So, yikes. Was this guy Jack the Ripper? I don't know. But I will tell you next time we have quite a case for Doe Friday. You want to talk about disturbing. How does an infant being stabbed 28 times grab you? Doesn't grab me well. And still being unidentified 40 years later. That's what we're dealing with. So, join me Friday for that. Please subscribe and hit the bell so you know when I upload. God bless you, and I'll see you Friday.